Hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday serial. I want to talk about Shutter number 7, but more importantly, I want to talk about the essay in the back, Slicing Up Sound Effects, I Want You to Know, by Shahan. So I really want to encourage you guys to go pick up this issue, despite the weird cover, which actually is by John Workman, who this essay is about. As this essay goes to explain, John Workman is known for his lettering, mostly, or at least to the author of the essay. And there's kind of an interesting, not only dissection of his work, but kind of the importance of lettering in comics. What I found really interesting after reading this is realizing this is kind of, I don't want to say a dying art, but an art that's only used in comics that love being comics. And this is one of those. And so there's a lot of detail into that. If you don't look too close, you won't necessarily see too much difference between digital lettering and hand lettering, as digital lettering is more clean cut, whatever. Hand lettering, you'll see some jagged edges, but you'll see a little more flavor, some texture, and maybe a little bit more play with certain characters. There's a lot you can do with digital lettering, as proven in this comic alone by kind of creating this texture and this feel with this like regular text to like this print sort of label maker kind of look of the font. And you'll see it a lot. Deadpool certainly was known for the longest time for the yellow word balloons, and that was something that was supposed to resemble something just wrong with his voice. You'll see a lot of other things, but beyond what's actually in the bubbles, and there's a bit in there about how much space the bubble has versus the text in there and how different letters will play with that. One thing that's actually really overlooked here, and I'm seeing it staring at this page, is every word balloon kind of has the little drop down little hang, and that, where you place that, how long those are, can be played with in weird ways to kind of infer different things, kind of draw at times if you're really willing to stare at the page and look for that kind of thing. The problem is that a lot of letters just kind of put it where it fits, and that's not necessarily wrong. It's just if there's no play with it, then it doesn't have any bigger instance. But the other part that kind of gets forgotten about, and this is the part where I feel comics can be comics, is bits like here, crack, the real like sound effects, the real palpable things. And in the essay they talk about in the old school, Simonson Thor, there's this villain that was being built up to for forever, and the villain was revealed. There was this doom sound effect, which is not really a sound per se, though you get some things close, but this kind of impending thing, this texture and this big panel and like this whole thing, and how that adds to the page. And it's interesting because it's definitely something that's only ever additional. The letter's never going to really have that moment to sing, like, a full page spread with no words, or a really textured dialogue structure where the penciler and artist maybe kind of fade, and that's kind of where the writer would shine a bit more. It's more this thing, but it's this sort of thing where lettering is one of those where if it's decent, it's decent. If it's really awesome, you'll see that extra little or extra lot of effort. But when it's really bad, you might as well throw away the comic because you can barely read it, right? And that's what really bad lettering is, barely legible in some ways. And I've seen comics like that. What's interesting is some of it might be more creative choices, but when it's really bad, kind of like half cursive, I can't take that. But maybe that's more of a personal thing than for some other people. I just find that interesting. If you're looking for a great example of really bad lettering, there's the Twilight comic that came out that had bubbles that took up half the page for no reason and had fonts that kind of scattered and moved and were poorly implemented. There's a number of other things wrong with that comic too, and that's not even. If you like Twilight, fine. That adaptation of itself beyond the subject matter and your feelings on that was awful. So there you be. I'd be really curious to hear if any of you have any insights or thoughts about lettering, because it's something that I've been trying to think about a little more. I know some of us have been trying to explore it a little more, but it's a subject that's kind of hard to dig into. So share what you know, folks.